I'm Tracy Austin, your host of the People Strategy Podcast. This show provides interviews with organizational leaders and ongoing coaching experiences that highlight elevating people in organizations through a people strategy roadmap.
And I said this on stage, I think it's our job as HR leaders to actually make sure our employees, like, it's the one thing I think Gallup got right, which is, do you have a best friend at work?
Welcome to the People Strategy Podcast. My name is Tracy Austin, and today we are diving into talent trends and best practices in talent management. So today we are talking with Tim Sackett, and one of the things that Tim is going to bring to the table today is tech and all of the fun tech items. But before we get to that, Tim, you're cracking up over there. So I do want to thank a couple past guests on our podcast, Ben Moons with FAMA on talent assessments and Tara Kamel on Circle, both talking about AI and tech and how they are bringing that to the table. So if you have not listened to those two episodes, they are linked below. And so with that, Tim is with HRU Tech, and he is somebody that I actually met at the HR Unite conference. So we love the HR and talent community. So Tina Marie Wolfield connected the two of us, and Tim, you did the keynote on that conference.
Yeah, no, I love Tina Marie and everything she does. I call it HR Summer Camp, and I wish she would rebrand it as that, and we could get ringer teas and we could all hang out, because that's what it's like. It's in the middle of the summer in Michigan, and Frankenmuth, which is this really cool, kind of quaint, kind of upper Michigan city. It's really cool. I like it.
And it's all Christmas. Like, it has the largest Christmas store
in
ever.
The world. Yeah, in the world.
It does. And
think of like 2 Walmarts of just Christmas stuff. Like, that's what it is. And people go, well, wait a minute, all year long? Yep, all year long. It's a big German community, so there's breweries and all that stuff. It's fun.
It is. And you have to just walk through the downtown because it is absolutely amazing. So if you've never been there, are you back there next summer, Tim?
I'm not as a speaker, maybe as like just coming to to be a part of it. It all depends on my schedule. So we'll have to work that out.
Okay. So I know I'm speaking there next summer. I know
Nice.
John was on our podcast previously, and John and I actually experienced the Christmas store.
Oh yeah.
I know. So, so many fun things. So if you want to check out HR Summer Camp, I agree with you. That is a better name. Make sure you check that out in July. I will make sure that is also in the show notes so that you can register for it, because it sells out every single year.
The People Strategy Podcast is sponsored by the Team Retention Program offered through Elevated Talent Consulting. Do you have leaders that are in people management and are really looking for the tools to bring their team together, specifically that aligns the team strategy to the business outcomes, that also aligns the individual's personal goals to the goals of the organization as a team? In this program, we partner with learners to experience and create their own leadership around talent pathway plans, goal setting, performance evaluation, and winning as a team. Head to the link at the bottom of the page to find out more and sign up.
Tim, I am so excited to chat today about technology, and I'm curious, how does technology help our middle level managers uplevel their people?
It's a lot. You can't say that question fast 3 times. By the way,
I tried.
Before we get into that, like, the whole retention thing is becoming such a huge topic for 2025. Like, everybody is talking about that. Because I think when the economy gets a little squirrely and when people aren't really sure what to do, like, it's so important to hang on to your best people, right? And I'm this true believer, that we just have this epidemic of loneliness. And a lot of people have said this, but I believe, and I actually got called out. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago. It was like 100 CHROs. And I said this on stage. I think it's our job as HR leaders to actually make sure our employees, like, it's the one thing I think Gallup got right, which is, do you have a best friend at work? And one of the leaders literally shouted out, like, you think HR should make, friends for our employees? And I'm like, I do. I actually do. I think we're uniquely positioned to make friends, for helping our employees to make friends. And it's just a skill that has been lost with all of the digitalization of the world and all of this technology that we're going to talk about. And I do think we're uniquely positioned that we can help our employees create friendships. Now, do I think I'm going to create a best friend for them? I don't know. But like Tracy, think of your best friend in your world right now. Somebody popped into your head. The day you met that person, you did not know you were going to meet your best friend that day. We never know. But we have to get people in positions to actually create these relationships. And if you do, they're way more likely to stay. They're way more likely to be engaged, to be highly productive. All of those great things that we want in HR, simply because we gave them an opportunity to be, to make a friend that day. And it sounds so, I don't know if it's pie in the sky or rose colored glasses or whatever, when we start thinking about strategy and business and all this stuff. And I'm so stuck on this concept of simply, can we just help our employees make friends?
And I think it is that simple. And what I love about everything you're saying is we have a program called our New Hire Buddy program. And it is literally, the intention is to create a best friend at work before day one, where this buddy calls them up and says, hey, Tim, my name's Tracy. We are, we're going to be best friends, whether you like it or not. I mean, but here's the thing. I know you're starting next week. What are you most afraid of? Like, what are you excited about? All right, we're going to take you out to lunch on day one. Where do you want to go? Right. So it's setting the stage before they even come in. And guess what? This is a peer. It's not a manager. It's not any of those things. This is a peer that is really going to support them to have that best friend at work. That's not somebody that is doing performance appraisals on them, any of those things, but it's really, hey, what do you need? Come to me so that I can help you with those questions. But I know one of my best friends, we were both started at Sears at the same time, first jobs out of college. She became one of my best friends because
we all have them.
Complaining about the things that were going on versus making really good requests. You know how this goes.
Yep.
But we came up with solutions for that. So how do we create shared experiences with individuals to grow personally and professionally and make it a little bit fun?
Yeah. I guess I worked for a big enterprise company that the onboarding was 90 days. And in that 90 days, every single day I had a 1-hour conversation with somebody in the company that I didn't know. Again, big company, right? I mean, hundreds of thousands of employees. They were all strategically done for the point of being an HR person. Like, I never know when I was going to have to maybe have a conversation, and maybe never in my career I would ever have to have a conversation with these people. But they did it. And then what happened after that 3 months is you had this giant network of people that you actually had real conversations with. Like, the conversations were structured in an hour so we could get to know each other a little bit. Here's what I do. Here's what you do. And, and then you start connecting dots. And all of a sudden you felt way more integrated into the company. As just onboarding. Now, again, most companies don't have hundreds of thousands of people. So maybe yours is 10 conversations. It's all kind of built around that 100 cups of coffee book that was out, years ago, right? Which everyone loves that concept of saying, hey, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee with somebody different in 100 days in a row and see how my life changes. And it turns out it actually is pretty cool. Even if you don't like some of the people, you might find people that you really do like. So, it's something we're all going to tackle. And again, especially with the demographics and everything at play, is you better learn how to hang on to your best people. In HR, if we do that one thing really well, we could be great. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I mean, this is how I do it. Like, if you ask me a question, I completely went off the rails on something else.
Perfect. So it's perfect. Well, we'll hit tech, eventually. But
so middle managers, we want to get back to that, right? Middle managers in terms of the tech that they can help them with their teams.
Yes.
Is that what the question was?
Yes, it was. I'm like, I don't know what the question was now.
I know.
Yes,
now you forgot.
You had it better than I did.
The coaching tech that's out there right now to me is fascinating, the AI coaching tech. And there's a lot of them. So you have to go and really kind of pick and choose and take a look, demo a lot. What I love is that it's really helping leaders, I think, not only craft better feedback for individuals in the moment. There's some that are even going to be live, right? Where if an employee is saying something to you, like in a one-on-one, it can be listening and kind of be popping up a potential question, and a lot of times the question we don't ask is the problem, right? Because we don't want to, maybe we think that question will embarrass somebody or make them feel uncomfortable or we feel uncomfortable asking it. And I think having this kind of tool alongside us, because kind of AI coach to me would be good. And by the way, it's coaching both sides, right? Because I think that sometimes we get lost in this kind of broken communication that we have between, manager, leader, and employee, and helping both of them have more dynamic conversations, I think really helps. So there's so much coaching tech. When I was at HR Tech Conference this fall, it seemed like every year it seems like there's one kind of tech that hits really hard. And this year, it seemed like coaching tech was one of the big ones.
It is. It's a huge one. So I think most of our listeners know that we're a partner with Predictive Index and love PI. And PI came out with PI Perform. And it is all the coaching tech that is goes inside of all of your, your Zoom, your Teams, all those, and pops up with those questions along with laying out your meeting. And there's so much out there. And it ties back to who am I naturally, behaviorally? What are my natural tendencies? And when we know that, now we can and agree with that, right? Now we can have better conversations.
Yeah, and part of that too is like nudging. As leaders, we tend. I always believe like the leader's number one priority is to increase the talent on their team, and I've been pretty consistent to that. Instead, we have so many leaders that believe their number one priority is to actually whatever function, their function has to be the best function kind of thing. You're like, no, that's your team's going to make that. Your job is to make them better. And so a lot of times we get our eyes off the ball, so to speak. And so I think the nudge technology that's out there, reminding leaders, giving leaders insight, to like, hey, follow up with Tracy and send her this note. And, and just, again, that constant kind of positive feedback loop. I also I'm one of those weird leaders that believe that really nobody wants critical feedback. They just want to be told how awesome they are. And because and that's this is just my experience, right? As a leader and having, been around really big teams, I found a tiny percentage of people that could actually handle critical feedback, a little bit bigger percentage that say they want it. And then the vast majority just tell me I'm the best thing that ever walked the earth and I'll be happy as punch and go out back and work hard. Right. And it seems a little, kind of surface level, but at the end of the day, we have to give people what they want, what they need. And sometimes that's just like, hey, what? Keep being a B player. You're awesome. I wouldn't say B player, but keep showing up, keep doing what you're doing. You're
Absolutely.
You're great.
And here's the thing. So often we don't hear it. I do a mastermind every Monday, and the leader of this is freaking phenomenal. She's absolutely amazing. And towards the end of the call, she's asking questions, this and that. I'm like, can I make an observation? And she's like, sure. And there's 10 people on the call. It's the same 10 people every week. I'm like, you have stepped into your leadership and you're glowing. And the way that you are leading this group is incredible. And I've gotten so much out of it, especially the last 3 weeks with what she's done. She has tears in her eyes. And she's like, I guess and she's ready to shift the conversation and not accept it. I'm like, hold on. So much of this is learning how to accept that you did a great job. We all want it, but yet we don't want it because we're not given it and we don't know how to accept it.
Yeah, no, I think it's so easy for us as leaders to get caught in the trap of thinking we have to give critical all the time versus going to somebody and going, you know what, that 10% of them that we would love to have better should not overshadow the 90% of them that's really strong, right? And am I giving that 90% enough, of the time it needs, right? In terms of letting them know. I'm not, so everyone needs a kick in the butt sometimes, but for the most part, I think we get caught in that trap as leaders thinking that's our job,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know you wrote a book on fixing talent today. And, I love your LinkedIn header that says, you have interesting things to say, as you've already shared with us. So I'm curious, what is your take on, fixing talent today for leaders, especially throwing in some of this tech items with that?
Yeah, I mean, and this could be tech enabled or not enabled. I think when we take a look at AI is going to disrupt every single function, not just HR, not just talent. We tend to focus on those because that's our functional kind of lens that we're in. And then we also kind of get dropped on us oh, by the way, as finance and sales and operations and every other single part of our organization gets impacted by AI, we in HR have to help. And you're like, wait a minute, our job's getting impacted too. I'm a technologist and a futurist, and I love all of that stuff, and I've embraced all this stuff, and I'll be an early adopter because I'm forcing myself to answer the question: if AI takes away 75% of my job tomorrow, what could I do? What should I do? What should I be doing And a lot of us aren't asking that. They're going, oh my gosh, AI is going to do this. And this is what I do. We're not really going, well, wait a minute. What's the cool stuff we could really get our hands around, right? And again, talking about like creating these relationships at work and doing, and creating this environment, this culture that we would all want to, go. I had a leader one time and say like he would terminate somebody and he would say, I'm going to give them a gift. And I'm like, dude, that's so dark. Like you're giving them a gift. He goes, no. You're thinking about this all wrong. What if the next job they have is that job that changes their life, that gives them everything they wanted, because they're not getting that here, right? Mm-hmm. We're beating the crap out of them. We're pushing them out of their comfort zone. They're unhappy. They're not performing. I'm giving them a gift to go find the job that's right for them, right? That's actually going to give all of this to them. And I think, that's what we have to look at, this kind of AI as a gift and say, okay, forever we've said, oh my gosh, if we just had capacity and time, what could we do? And I think we have to start answering that question now, because little by little, AI is going to take pieces of our work away. It's not going to be like a light switch and tomorrow 75% of our work will be done. But if you don't pay attention, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 75% of your work you do today will be gone. And then we'll be sitting here and going, well, wait a minute, I haven't really prepared for this. And we should be preparing for it from that standpoint.
And I go back to one of your first comments about loneliness, right? And it's like, okay, so if the busy work's taken away, how do we create genuine connections? And AI can help with that, with the coaching and with some, like AI can go through and say, here's all the things Tim does amazingly well. Here's some of the things maybe we can support Tim with. Guess what? All the things Tim does well, we don't see because you're doing it well. Now we can name it, right? It's like AI can do some really good things to bridge those gaps in the relationships to create strong relationships, which creates trust, as long as we, know that is our intention. And guess what happens with great trust? Increased business. When we trust the people we're with, we're willing to give a heck of a lot more to that, which means all of the things rise.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of engagement technology that hits the marketplace in the next, 18 months, 24 months. That's going to go across the organization. So like you and I might be in the same department. So it's and we were, onboarding buddies and this whole thing, which is great. But what if the three people that actually have the biggest potential to be my best friend are in other functions? Mm-hmm. And we're going to start to see this as we start to look at skills, and all this other stuff of gathering all of this data. AI is going to be able to go and say, gosh, there's actually 2 or 3 people that you need to know in the organization that you guys are just going to hit it off well, right? Professionally, personally, whatever, like that could be, really good from that standpoint. It's like we're going to start to see those dots being connected. We're starting to see it on the skills side. And automatically when you talk to those skills kind of AI enabled, product people that are building this stuff, they already see this. They already go, it's not just about that. We know the people who are most alike. We know the people who are most different. We know the people, we could actually build really great teams based on the data we have if companies would just kind of embrace and listen to us. But, it's hard. Right. We get caught in this traditional thinking. I always think like every leader should take like an hour of their week or maybe an hour a month to start, take their team and say, okay, tomorrow we can't do anything we're doing now. What should we be doing? Let's just brainstorm. Let's like think about stuff. Let's get really blue sky and think about some great things we could do. And then little by little, can we start chipping away at those things, right? As part of our job to add in. Because I think like that's another engagement kind of thing, right? That kind of lends itself to higher retention. In terms of the fixing talent thing, organizations and leaders can do one simple thing, and that's just own it. So often I find hiring managers, leaders, they want to blame HR. They want to blame TA. They want to blame, I don't have enough, things. And I always kind of go to the thing. I'm like, what if your TA team was on they were going to HR summer camp on a bus and it got hit and they all died? Like, what would you do to find talent? Are you going to wait for the team, for the company to hire another talent team? No, you're going to bring your team in. You're going to talk. You're going to get your phones out, your laptops out. You're going to find out who you know. You're going to own the talent. And when we go into organizations and we get leaders that actually own the talent on their team, they then can use HR and talent acquisition in a really great way to supplement what they need, right? And help them create really, really good teams. And so I think that's one of the things we have to get, our leaders to understand is that at the end of the day, again, your job is to increase the talent on your team. You own talent. And then how do you use HR or talent acquisition to help you in terms of what you need. But if you're just sitting there in a boardroom or a conference room and you're yelling at your VP that you can't get the work done because TA didn't give you somebody, you're a failure as a leader in my mind.
Right.
And I would say that to all of them in that room.
Yeah, for sure. And, one of the easiest ways to figure out what we can own is to look at what are we complaining about. Every complaint is a poorly worded request. So if we start listening into the things that we complain about, now we can see what are our actual requests and actually start making them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you own it, you're going to make the requests, whether it's, finding the right who to put in that spot, whether that is, talking to TA and saying, all right, what can I do here? I've been just doing a podcast series with Adam Grzinski from Potawatomi Bingo.
Yeah.
And Adam has been talking about, he's an IT director. He's been listening to my podcast since the beginning. He's like, Tracy, I've implemented everything in my team and I got him promoted several times. I've grown this huge team. I'm like, well, let's talk about that. So this is an example of, instead of complaining about HR not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which they are, but guess what? It's a global thing versus you have the skin in the game with the people that you're talking with every single day. How can you own those things and start asking the questions to get the insight you need from the other who's inside of the organization?
100%. You're right on. I think in the last month on the tech side for talent, we've seen a couple of launches. LinkedIn launched their hiring assistant, and then Smart Recruiters came and said, hey, we have Winston, which is an agent, right? So now we already have this break in AI between Copilot, kind of assistant, and agent. And the difference being they're both AI. One is, hey, what if you had this kind of person next to you that knew everything, could help you be better you, this kind of hiring assistant. The agent is, what if there was just like some work that you hated doing every day and somebody else could do it? And that's the agent, right? Concept. And you think, and so like Salesforce and some of these companies have gone the agent route. You have Microsoft and LinkedIn who've gone this Copilot route. Part of that comes back to it's revenue based, right? If you think of LinkedIn, they make money on LinkedIn recruiter licenses. That's their main source of revenue. Well, if they created an agent that did all of that work, they no longer would need recruiter licenses because recruiters wouldn't need to be needed at that point. And so there's a reason why they're kind of doing it right from that standpoint. And then you have other talent ones like this Winston from Smart Recruiters, where literally the concept is somewhere in your HRIS system, someone gets terminated or someone puts in their 2 weeks. There's like some alert, right, that comes up. The agent would see and say, oh gosh, that Tracy, the hiring manager, I better contact her to see if she wants me to replace Tim, who just put his notice in. And that starts the process, right? And the entire time it's all conversational. It's all driven through text or email or whatever it might be. And everything seems like you're dealing with this real recruiter. And as soon as, they would do the intake, they would do everything has happened kind of simultaneous, and it's all based on kind of these things that are happening within the system already. And it's so dynamic because when you think about from the moment a person leaves, or, we got the alert that they might leave, to the moment where a hiring manager is now interviewing somebody face to face, in that system, a recruiter never would touch. They never needed. They were never needed. They never touched anything. The intake, the job description, the posting, the screening of resumes, the going out and sourcing candidates, everything, the matching to the job, everything was done by AI until even the scheduling of the interview. And then the first time the candidate sees a human or speaks with a real human is when they actually interview with, that hiring manager. And to me, that's the future of TA and what's going to happen. So again, we go back to then those recruiters and said, if that was the case, what could you do that is completely different than that? Well, we did this big CEO kind of survey this year. And one of the things that CEOs, there's a complete disconnect with how they think talent comes in to like how it actually happens. Most companies still post a job, wait for somebody to apply, go through that process. And actual CEOs think their recruiting team is actually going out and searching for the best talent, making these relationships, trying to create, this pipeline where somebody's ready, they're the next one up, creating real succession where none of that actually happens. Very, in a very small percentage, it might happen. And so to me, that's like the kind of those unique things of saying, cool, this tech can do this stuff. Now, what do we get to do? Like, that's really valuable. Because if you don't, you're just basically waiting for the CFO to go, okay, hey, how many heads are you going to give me? Because, this tech we just paid for is taking this
Right.
many heads. Right.
Right. And as we talked about at the beginning, it's all about the relationships that we develop. And that's something that AI does not have humanity inside of it, right? So
No.
that's something that only we can do. So what is that thing that only we can do that moves relationships and business forward? And you just talked about tech making these leaders look absolutely amazing, right? It's like all these things are happening in the back end. We've opened up a lot more time to do the things that are actually meaningful that we want to do.
Yeah.
And, that really brings things forward. So you talked about two with LinkedIn and with the recruiter. And it was Winston, correct?
Yeah. Smart recruiters. Yeah.
Yep. And so any other favorites that you have out there right now?
Oh God, the one that I think is the best at this that's kind of created this kind of evolution of AI is Paradox from a high volume hiring, right? So you think of low skill, no skill hiring. They've gone and literally have gotten people to apply to interview in a few minutes. I mean, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like you can, apply to a job and already schedule your interview in under, kind of 5 minutes, on average, where most of these companies, even at the high volume, we're looking at, we were at 7 days, we were at 8 days, 9 days,
Right.
whatever, and now the entire thing is being automated. I still find the community is a little slow. They're a little scared around like the ethical AI piece of this, right? Is like, could the AI be biased? And again, when we think about early AI, machine learning AI, like 5 to 10 years ago, what we learned very quickly was we were teaching the AI to be biased in our selection process, right? And now the new AI that's being built it isn't really designed the same way. So it's a little bit different, right? And it has guardrails. And like that's what I like about Paradox is they actually built a private language model. The only thing that this software, and don't get this wrong, it's a robot, but it's software. The only thing the software can do is actually go out and screen and hire and do this process. It can't call somebody a bad name. It can't tell somebody they're ugly. It can't just make up stuff. It's impossible. It's a piece of software. But even then they said, hey, what if this AI in responding to a question that a candidate asked, maybe said something that could be considered offensive? Who knows? He created another AI just to check the answer. So in the millisecond it takes to put the answer together, another AI is going, wait a minute, could this be offensive or wrong or against the law or whatever? So it's almost like a legal team that's checking on the TA team. And then if the legal team AI says yes, it automatically goes into a pre-approved canned legal response that would say, that's a great question. Again, it sounds conversational. I'm going to have, Tracy reach out to you. When's a good time? Let me send you a link. You guys can set up a call, right? Or whatever. Like it's incapable of doing these kind of bad bias types of things. And the nice thing is we like literally in the moment can also measure and audit and understand and the entire funnel. We could also get very specific. I've worked with health systems that said like, hey, we don't think our nursing population matches the population we would want. And you could actually go in and say, okay, hey, we want 75% female and 25% male and this many white and this many African and this many Hispanic and this many whatever. And it would actually force funnel down that, right? It would send red flags up when you're getting kind of out of sync to where you want to be. There's so many advantages to that kind of, again, kind of hiring for, whatever we want to hire for. And to me, I always think it's hiring for good. It's like kind of that Google thing is like, are you going to use it for bad or evil? Or are you going to use it for good? And I think we can figure out how to use AI for good in a lot of these. So Paradox to me is one that creating the private language model is difficult. It's expensive. It's hard to do. But I think in HR, we're going to see a lot of our HR technology built on private. You still see OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, all these other public language models that some companies are building their backbone on. I would be a little more scared of that because again, it was built on the internet, right. And even though you're going to put the right bumpers around it, it still was trained on something that was wild versus something that was very kind of closed set,
Right. And so for our HR leaders that are going, I don't even know where to get started with this. Like, where is the HR easy button to AI?
I always want to start with my current vendors, right?
Yeah.
And because that's that's kind of how I got started. I just like literally demoed and asked questions, and they will teach you more than what you need to know, right? If you just go out. So I want to know in my current vendor stack, what AI I'm already using. You're already using it. Sometimes you don't know.
Right.
And then I want to know what's on the roadmap and what's being launched, because I might be looking for some kind of AI that my current vendor I'm using is launching in the Q2 of next year. So why would I really go through that process and hassle of going out and selecting something if I know it's going to be built already or is already built in testing, right? And is going to be launched soon, and start there. And then you really have to think again about like, what do you want done? What have you seen done? And by the way, we're not the only ones. Like I keep saying this, every function is doing the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Your head of finance, your head of sales, like everyone's looking, for this AI advantage. I was at an enterprise retailer this year, in the CHRO, like had me come in to take a look at their TA technology, and they were a Workday shop. How do we build out our Workday kind of recruiting with some other pieces? In this 30-day period that I was like doing all of this work back and forth, it was like very clear we want no AI. And she had a legal background. She was like, zero AI. I'm like, okay. I still brought AI, but in at some point, like in that day, because I spent a day with the CEO of this company came in, and the head of TA and I had already kind of like said, hey, like show like what this looks like statically of like what we could do without AI, but then show them what the AI stuff looks like. And he immediately was like, this is how we treat our customers. This is exactly what we would do for our customers. Why wouldn't we be doing this for candidates? And the CHRO was like, we're on this. That's why we have Tim here. And I was just like, it was an immediate switch of, oh crap, we better start to do this and figure this out. And so again, I think you have to be cautious. I don't think any of us, especially the bigger the brand you are, you don't want to end up on the front page of the New York Times because we messed something up. But I think when you take a look at how these technologies are being built and how they're being audited and by third parties and everything else, there's not one HR technology or TA technology company that I've seen in the last, 5 years that isn't keenly aware they don't want to be that company on the front of the New York Times. And they will do anything they can not to be, So, and we're going to see this in every big shop, Oracle, Workday, SAP, across the board, all the payroll companies are implementing different versions of AI. So everyone's going to see it at some point.
Yeah. And for the small shops out there, I know most of our listeners are small, under 100 employees,
sure.
And it's like for the small shops, it's really, really utilize the technology you have, whether that's a Paylocity or a Paycor or a Paycom, whether that's predictive index. There's a ton of AI built within that. And it's built on a model where it's being, it's not an open source model, right? It's the model from everybody that has taken it that we're being able to see that. And those are the things that, when you get curious about that, now you can scale that. Or, if you use Office 365, Copilot is a great add-on to that to really make your workday much, much easier, and ensuring you have that guide with you to help you. Don't try to figure all this out on your own. Right?
Yeah. I just saw something today, like if anything, just go out to ChatGPT and start messing around with it, right? Yeah. Take an old job description and cut it and paste it and ask it to make it, more gender friendly with, and then put some information about your company and just keep going back and forth and seeing what it creates. I saw some data today that was like 70% of US citizens are aware of ChatGPT. Only about 40% have actually used it. That they have actually got in there and asked it questions or tried to, take something and figure it out and go back and forth. And I think once we start to do that, like you can have this entire conversation with ChatGPT around, what is that HR technology, AI enabled HR technology that I should be aware of and, looking at and all this stuff. And it's amazing that, the information that it can come up with.
Absolutely.
And I always
different ones as well. Like,
go Claude, Gemini, Claude. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I put the same question to Claude and ChatGPT, and I'm amazed at the difference in the answers. Like, go have fun with this. It's a fun little playground experiment.
So good. And then and I actually think the smaller companies actually have a way bigger advantage on AI than big companies. Most of the big enterprise level CHROs, heads of talent that I know, they cannot move fast enough. They can't. Like they're literally these giant organizations just to get a new AI, piece of add-on through legal, through contracts, through IT security. It takes them months and months and months, if not a year, where a team of 200 or 100, you can go out, find a new AI that's in beta that has no customers, that just needs somebody to use it and prove it out. And they will literally give it to you. And you can do some of the coolest things with some of these startups. And so get out there, talk to them, try it. Your brand isn't big enough that it matters. Like if you mess up once, like again, everything's under a test, right? You're testing this, and we're gonna do 5 hires this way, and we're gonna do 5 hires the old way, and then we're gonna look at it, and from a legal standpoint, like you can go out there and figure out, like, hey, we were just testing this out to see what would happen. We're doing this A/B testing, blah blah blah. Not a lot of risk there. Again, if you do anything dumb, you're always at risk. Like, don't be dumb, but like get out there and actually
matter if it's AI or not.
Exactly. Right. And so I always think, like, I'm a big fan of SMB, and I think like you have such a huge advantage to move fast and get ahead of the big enterprise shops right now, especially when we think about like, what I'm hearing now too, which is funny, is like all these candidates are using AI to apply to jobs. They're applying to hundreds of jobs in minutes, Tim. And I was like, I don't believe this. And so Greenhouse, ATS, I know their founders really well. And I asked them to pull data, and gosh dang it, like the amount of applies have skyrocketed from like 100 per opening to like 200 per opening, like literally in a 2-year period. Some of that is economy based, right? But some of that is this AI based. So it is happening. And so again, how do we combat that? If we have AI applying to our jobs like crazy, I'm probably going to use AI to go out and match, right? And understand, like, who do I really need to look at first, and spend my time with if I'm going to have more and more candidates applying.
Right. So I guess one of the questions that, comes up a lot. I've had folks on the show. They're like, AI is awful. It should never be in recruiting, and there's an and both to this, right?
No, I understand. I actually am the minority in the industry in terms of my thoughts on this.
So, and I believe that there's a yes and the yes and is AI can't be successful without a human behind it. And AI was created based on the biases that we put into the system.
For sure.
And, so when we look at that, and we talked about this at the beginning, which is, what does AI open up so that we can truly do our best work? And I think that that's something that's a really fun question to play with, to go, okay, what can we do with this? And knowing the learning models that are out there with a double check to ensure that we don't have some of those things, it really boosts the confidence, because this thing's going so fast. It's AI's been around for 18 months now, 2 years max.
Yeah, it's like, well, almost 2 years now. January of it'd be January of 25, so 23. Basically, ChatGPT kind of went public. Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna shift to some fun questions. Not that this hasn't been fun, because you have interesting things to say. So, what is on your personal bucket list?
I've never been to Tokyo.
Okay.
I actually have 3 sons who went through a Japanese program in their school system, and they were lucky enough to go to Japan, and we were lucky enough to have exchange students come to and stay with us. And so I'm just fascinated by Tokyo. I want to go. So I've been all over the world, and it's just one place I haven't been yet, and so definitely want to go there.
Amazing. And what is on your professional bucket list?
Wow. I've literally, probably, beyond, what I've done, I've never done, a TEDx talk, a real TEDx talk.
Okay.
There's all like, there's TEDx, like Des Moines, like, I don't like, all right, cool. No, it's awesome. Right. Cause I think I would give everybody a chance to speak, but like I had a buddy of mine that actually did a real TEDx talk, and he said like the all that you have to go through to do it, like the training, the classes, because you get up there, I think it's 17 minutes, that you have to kill, the preparation for it, where you get up there and hit 17 minutes on the dot without like all these crutches and stuff like that. I go along with that. I've never done an hour on stage without a deck, without a PowerPoint deck. And again, clearly I can talk for an hour. It's not that. So to me, it's a crutch, but I've never just gotten up there and said, okay, hey, I'm going to spit for an hour and here we
Right.
go. And so at some point, I need to do that.
I love it. So 2 follow-up questions to that. First one is, how do you tie speaking in Tokyo with a real TEDx talk?
I know.
TED talk.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that would be interesting, right? So, and I've never been. I'm trying to think if I've ever been offered to speak in Japan. I don't think I ever have. Japan's a really closed society. It's a little bit different, from
Right.
that.
So we're putting it out there.
I know. Put it out there.
Japan
Let's
for
see what
10
happens.
seconds. Like
I
that's
know.
what we're putting out there.
Well, Indeed and like Glassdoor are owned by Recruit, which is a Japanese company. Like, hey, come on, let's go.
Yeah, for sure. And the reason why I ask these 2 questions to all of our guests, and it's a great question to ask at reviews or, while you're recruiting, is 1, you can create best friends. Like, hey, who wants to do these things that don't know each other? Like we talked about, we're lonely. How do we connect each other together? These questions do that. But also, how do we retain some of our key talent? Figure out what they want and figure out how do you make it work for your business and for them? How do we align individual core values with work core values? That's fun. And then my follow-up question is, how do we use AI to make all those things happen?
I know. Well, I think, people always ask, like I became this expert in HR technology. And the funny part of that was the reason I became an expert in HR technology is because I felt inferior in my knowledge in HR technology. And so it's kind of like Gladwell's 10,000 hours. I just started literally writing about it, demoing, writing, reviews. And then all of a sudden people were like, hey, can you come and talk about it at a conference? And I was always like, I'm not the one, and then eventually all of a sudden you go, oh gosh, I probably do. Like you probably are the one. You're probably that 1% that put more time into it, even though it's that you still feel like inferior to what's out there because again, it moves so fast. And then, when I sit, and my thing was always too, is like being that guy that felt like they were inferior around the knowledge of HR technology. Every time I talk, I try really specifically to say, I want to educate the audience in a way that they feel comfortable. It's like not talk over their head and not be, oh my gosh, and this is moving this fast and blah, blah, blah. And, and you start talking about stuff and people are like, oh my gosh, I'm lost already. Sometimes I feel that way, like when you get around like really high level sourcing people and they start talking about like going in these databases and doing this thing and dropping stuff over here and there. And all of a sudden, like you just get this glazed over look and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like you got to break this thing down. And so for me, it was always like, how do we break this down? And so like, go out and just start like teaching yourself. Like there's so much out there right now.
I love it. So as we wrap up, do you have any last thoughts for our listeners or kind of like that one thing that you want them to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, I'm like a big believer in HR technology, that HR should choose their own HR technology. We would never, as an HR leader, go into our finance office, into the CFO and said, hey, by the way, I have some new accounting software I think we're going to implement. So I'll let you know what it is. They would literally like say, get the hell out of my office. Right?
Yeah,
They would,
for sure.
like, or into operations or sales. But we feel very comfortable for CFO or the CIO to come into our office and say, here, I've selected some HR software for you. And we just go, okay, and we're like, no, we actually are the experts in HR, and we're going to be the experts in HR technology. It's the two, we know there's 2 competencies that are the lowest in HR leaders, and it's technology and data. And I think it's the 2 that we could control if we wanted to. We don't have to be the one that goes, oh, I'm not techie. Well, no, we have to be. If you're a leader, that's part of the job. You have to be techie and you have to be good at data, and we have to go out and teach ourselves this stuff. And no one's going to do it. No one's, IT is not coming in and saying, oh, by the way. And it's always funny because when we take a look at why people choose what they choose, a CFO chooses HR software that's bundled in with the finance software they want, ERP, right? So they're not doing it because they think it's good. They're doing it because they think they can get a good deal. Right. And so it might actually be the most vanilla, worst software that you can get. Right. And then same with IT. IT is not giving you good HR software. They're getting you software that fits within their architecture or fits within their security or something that they actually know how to implement that they've done before. They could care less if it's good or not. And so we have to be the experts in HR and HR technology. And I think we have to figure out like how to do that and be a part of that conversation before it gets selected for us. I think it's the biggest misnomer we have as an HR leaders if we'll let, finance and IT select our software.
Right. And I think with that, you just brought up a really important point. It's like I'm catching sunshine right now, let me tell you. So with that as well, it's looking and saying, as HR, we are the experts in what we're doing, and we have to be able to enroll others in that. And, one of the biggest things I see with HR leaders that I coach all day long is having the confidence to go into the room and be able to enroll in what is true, because you've got the 10,000 hours in it. You know what that is.
Yeah.
You don't have the confidence of speaking it yet. And that is what is going to align with the business needs, with what HR needs to really ensure that we're creating that culture.
Yeah. And people always ask me like, well, how do we get to that point? I first become a super user of the software you have.
Right. Yeah,
I want to go to the vendor, whether that's a Paylocity or a Paycor or whatever that you're using, and go, hey, I want to be your number one user. I want to be the people when you go to sell to another organization, oh my gosh, you need to talk to Tim. Like he uses our software better than anybody else. Because then you're going to be able to go back to your CFO or your IT and go, hey, there's 3 things that we need that this system doesn't have. And I know they don't have because we're the number one user of the system.
Right. So my question for you, Tim, is do you have a list of what are the 20 questions that you should ask?
I don't.
I just created your new download.
I know it could be it's a great white paper.
Yeah.
I think I probably have it within like another white paper that we've done around like HR technology and how to buy HR technology. Cause it is a great one. And like, we've always talked about this, like at HR Tech Conference too, with like from a content perspective of saying, look, every year you have new people coming to this conference. And you should have like a buyer's 101 session where we can go and say, hey, look, this is how you buy your HR technology.
Yes.
Because there's always a new group of people that are going to be new buyers. And we just act like, everybody knows that. No, they don't.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We will, when you come up with that white paper, let me know and we'll put it in the show notes so folks can grab it.
That's a great idea.
So, we're recording on December 2nd and we're going to drop on January 9th. So you got some time.
Awesome.
So with that, thank you so much for joining us this week on the People Strategy Podcast. And we'll see you next week where we're talking about more HR tech. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy, TRACI Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.